All right, welcome guys. I am Carl Freund, designated broker for Kenneth James Realty. In this evening, which happens to be Saturday night at like 10 o'clock, if you haven't known me personally, I'm a super nerd. I'd rather be here with you guys talking about purchase contracts on the AAR forums than out partying with my buddies. So let's get into it. I'm gonna go through a purchase contract on one of our own listings that was just listed today and see if we can't knock this out in, let's call it like 5 or 10 minutes. Okay, so go into the MLS and I'm gonna pull the listing information here for you. And I've already started a loop. If you guys don't know what a loop is, then you're probably not using Dotloop. If you're using Dotloop, awesome, you know what I'm talking about. If you guys are using a system like SkySlope or whatever it is, the process or zip forms will be nearly identical and you just won't have some of the functionality that I've got in Dotloop. I'm gonna go right through this very quickly and knock this out as fast as I can without screwing it up. So let's get started. Buyer, I'm gonna use Bobby Buyer in this case. Let's see if there's a Bobby Buyer in here. There sure is. And then seller, let's say Sam Seller. Oh, there's a Mary sample. Steven sample, how's that? All right, premise address. I'm gonna go ahead and copy and paste the first part of this address so that I don't have fat finger syndrome and screw this up. 6834 East 4th Street, and please put unit 3 in there, and that's gonna help your escrow officers determine what unit that is. That is obviously in Scottsdale, AZ 85251. So we'll put in there Scottsdale. County is Maricopa. And then AZ is pre-filled 85251 is going to be the zip code on that. The assessor's parcel number can be found right here in Monsoon on the upper left. So if you look at here, this is the 130-10-321 number. I'm going to copy and paste that. Same thing with the legal description. Go back into Monsoon and right down here where it says legal description abbreviated, this is what you want. Copy and paste that right in there. Make sure, please make sure that it lines up somewhat. If it says lot 3 and it's unit 3, that's generally a pretty good indication that you're on the right track there. What is the purchase price of this thing? Let's go ahead and go full priced because we are Kenneth James Realty. $219 is what we're going to sell that thing for. So we're going to say $219,000. Earnest money. Guys, earnest money is totally negotiable, by the way. So you can do anything. You can put $1 in there for a VA. You can put $0 in there. You can put $10,000 in there. You can put $200,000 in there. As a general rule of thumb, this is not hard fast. As a general rule of thumb, you can put about 1% in there. In this case, I'm just going to put $2,000 to keep the math nice and simple. That does mean that we have a balance due of $217,000. If I could find my phone here, around here somewhere, I'm going to show you guys a little bit of math on this thing. So if we took $219,000 and we subtract out 10%, which is what we want the down payment to be. So I'm going to take $219,000 and then we're going to take that times 0.10 or 10%. That is a down payment, if we're going to use a 10% down payment, of $21,900. If we're putting $2,000 into earnest money, there's a cash balance due of $19,900. That $19,900 is what I'm going to use right here on line number 12. Now, then if you add these up, that should equal the down payment of 10%. So we need to take $219,000, quick math on this, minus $2,000 minus $19,900, and you're going to get $197,100. $197,100. The other way you can do that is pretty simple. You just take $219,000, for those of you guys that are not good at math, times 0.9, and that will give you the same number. And that's the number that we should be using on line 13. On line 12 here, what I need you to do here is cash at closing, and that designates the down payment will be coming in the form of cash. And then this $197,100 balance due would be a conventional loan. I like to put in the type of loan that we're doing in there, and that helps the other agent kind of look very quickly at like A or B. Is this thing going to work or is it not going to work? What type of loan are they using? What kind of down payment do they have in there? And how much earnest money are they actually putting in there? That's very important when comparing multiple offers. So make that as strong as you can and understand that earnest money could be a deciding factor in some cases if you had the exact same offer as a competing offer, but you're offering more earnest, that may sway somebody. Or if you have a conventional loan versus an FHA or a VA, all of which are fantastic loans, that may make a difference to your seller or your seller's agent at least. Line 17, earnest money is in the form of personal check. You can do wire transfer. Other could be like a certified check. Generally, escrow companies in Arizona don't take cash, just kind of a heads up on that. Upon acceptance of this offer, earnest money, if any, will be deposited with escrow companies. That brings me back to another point about earnest money. VA loans do not require earnest money. The earnest money in a VA loan is always refundable no matter what. They can never lose that earnest deposit. So just a heads up on that. Close of escrow. Today is March 23rd. We're going to go ahead and push this towards the end of April, call it 30 days out. That would generally land you on April 26th. I'm going to caution you against closing on a Friday. And the reason being is that generally if you close on a Friday, the buyers are going to tend to move on Saturday and Sunday. What happens is sometimes these things get delayed and it gets pushed back to Monday. Well, guess what? The seller's agent or the seller's broker in a lot of cases won't allow a prepossession. That's really, really going to put a lot of pain on your buyer, and they're not going to be able to move in, and they've probably hired help or enlisted some help from their neighbors or friends or family to get them moved, and it's going to be a massive, massive inconvenience for everybody. So I'd recommend in this particular case closing on Thursday the 25th, and that gives you that extra little bit of margin of safety that you might need in the event that something happens. Line 33, this talks about post-possession or pre-possession. You could put a different date in here. For example, like if you were going to actually do a pre-possession, you could do something like April 10th. If you're going to do a post-possession where the seller actually stays in the property past closing, you could put something like April 30th in there. Things do come up as a broker. I don't like to see post-possessions or pre-possessions because it does open up the other parties to some liability there. And then you may have to evict somebody and it gets messy, and let's just not do that. All right, so Addenda Incorporated, this is where you're going to actually attach some of the addenda to the contract, and this is the only way and the proper way to do this. So if you've got an HOA addendum, you're going to need to check HOA. If you've got a buyer contingency, this is where you would do that. Definitely in this case, we have a lead-based paint disclosure. We have an HOA and lead-based paint disclosure. I'm going to select those two boxes, and we are moving on. Line 39 through 50. I see this 100 times, and it just becomes kind of an annoyance from a brokerage or a broker point of view. Built-in appliances are things like ranges, above the range microwaves, anything that requires like a screwdriver to pull it out. I know that ranges, you can kind of slide them out and they're not really attached, but it does say right in there that ranges are considered built-in appliances, so you don't need to list things like dishwashers and stuff like that, or garbage disposal. I always see garbage disposals in there. I don't know why. I'm not pulling a garbage disposal out. That's not really personal property, but one thing you do need to put in there would be a refrigerator. I'm going to cheat. I don't know what type of fridge this is. Let's just look at the MLS listing pictures and see if this agent was any good, and see if I can kind of peep what type of refrigerator that is. Bam, look at that thing. It's a Frigidaire. That really helps. All right, so let's type in Frigidaire stainless steel. All right, let's take a look and see if the washer and dryer are included in this thing. You're going to find that in the details section here, right around here somewhere. It does say washer dryer hookup only, so we're going to skip past that. If there was a washer or dryer associated with the contract, you did want to call that out. We've had situations where either the washer or dryer has broken mid escrow and they've swapped it out with something cheaper. That doesn't really work. So make sure you're calling it out. Like if it's a white Samsung front load, you need to put in there white Samsung front load. A lot of people put as of a certain date, like the close of escrow date. I'm sorry. A lot of people put in a certain date, such as maybe the date that the contract was written. That is okay too, as long as you've got some kind of pictures of it. This is a good time to break out the cell phone and take pictures of some of the appliances or some of the personal property that you want to keep in the contract. All right, guys, there's no above ground spa or hot tub in this particular case. And also there's no personal property. If this was a cash deal, you can put stuff on line 61 and 62. That is okay. I caution you against that if you're trying to do a financed offer. And the reason being is that the appraisers definitely don't like to see stuff in there, and the mortgage underwriter is going to have a massive problem with financing personal property when we're talking about a mortgage, which is designed only for real property. So I wouldn't put anything in line 61 or 62. Write up a separate bill of sale, even if it's for $1, and I'll spot you the buck. Financing, let's talk about this. Type of financing, we know this is going to be a conventional loan. Here's one little bit of heads up about seller concessions. On line 100, that gives you an option to put in a percentage in there. I don't know if I would really do a percentage. I think I'd be more inclined to do a flat fee. And the reason being is that as things negotiate, say if your offer goes higher, your concessions go higher, you got to kind of figure out what the net is. If you put a flat fee in there, like it's a flat $5,000, it's very, very easy to do the math on that. And then the sellers can recognize that right away and compare offers very, very quickly. And you're going to make it easy for the seller's agent to calculate that. So on line 101, I just want you to put a flat fee. Let's call it $5,000. Moving towards line number 111, initial appraisal fee shall be paid by the buyer. Guys, 99.9% of the time, 99.9999% of the time, it's going to be paid for by the buyer. If it's a situation where you think the house is grossly overpriced and there's no chance of this thing appraising, you might want to negotiate the seller to pay for that. In any other case, I don't see any reason why the buyer shouldn't pay for that. So just a heads up on that. All right, line number 117, let's go ahead and put Fidelity National Title. Just a quick shout out to Fidelity. I love you guys. Noel Moretti is my title rep, and Mercy Perry is my escrow officer. Fantastic service. No, they didn't pay me to say that, but they probably should. But that would be a RESPA violation. Moving on. All right, moving along. Prorations of assessments and fees. The only time I would really mess with line 151 would be if we were doing a pre-possession or post-possession. For example, like if the buyer's taking pre-possession of the property and you don't want the seller to pay for the HOA dues and stuff like that for 2 months or 3 months or even a couple days, that would be the place to actually prorate those for a date, and you would enter a date and check other in there. In this case, we're going to leave that default, and that would default back to the close of escrow date. Line 173 or line 175, this is an or situation, one or the other. I would say 95% of the time, we're going to go ahead and click on seller shall provide lead-based paint information within 5 days after the contract acceptance. If they don't, you guys can cure. We hate cure notices, but they're not an act of war. Just saying that, hey, we need to hustle up and get something done. And then we have a little bit of time after the receipt to go ahead and conduct a risk assessment. Not very often do they put lead-based paint information prior to contract acceptance. You would find that in the MLS in the documents section if they would. So just be a heads up. I mean, sometimes there are in there. So line 181 and 182, I do want this to go ahead and default to line 181 because this property was built, in fact, before 1978. If it was built after 1978 and line 181 was initialed, as a broker, I'm okay with that, but if the reverse were true, where line 182 is signaling that it was built after 1978, but the property was built in like the 50s, I'd probably consider that a problem, and I would have somebody go back and correct that on an addendum or something like that. Scrolling down through here, line 211, buyer warranties, always put none in here, and the reason being is that I don't want anybody to go in after the contract is sent over and put something in there that shouldn't have been in there. And that's the same reason why I'm going to put the number 10 in line 213 and make sure that there are no blanks at all on the contract. Line 242, 99.9% of the time, maybe less than that, maybe 90% of the time. It'll be on a sewer system. The only thing I've ever seen would be a conventional septic system, and I see that usually in like Southern Phoenix, like Levine, 85041. There's some farmland out there, or even far north, Phoenix, or any kind of in the outskirts there. I don't even know what an alternative system would be. That scares me just a little bit to think about that. Okay, so line 246, buyer initials required, and then make sure that the swimming pool barrier regulations are also initialed, and then also line 259 is initialed. And then we're going to go back in here and reiterate this 5 days. So on line 275, I want you to put a 5 in there. And line 280, I want you to put this 3 in there. And then we're moving on. Home warranties. I'm going to stop you for just 2 seconds. We've had so many issues with properties closing, and then 2 weeks after the close of escrow, the water heater busts, or maybe the AC condenser goes out. Massive, massive problem. Those problems can be avoided by paying like $500 for home warranty. I do use Fidelity Home Warranty for ease. Their service has historically been very, very good, and the cost for that is about $535 for the extended coverage. I think it's worth every single dime, and I'll come out of my own pocket to pay for those things. In the event that something went horribly wrong, I know I can sleep at night and my buyer's covered. So always, always, always do home warranty. I don't care what home warranty company that you guys use. I don't get paid by Fidelity at all to say this stuff. That is simply the company that I use, and you're welcome to use anybody you like. Optional coverage would be on line 294. That would be something like pool, spa, coverage, or rider there. Not pool, spa, or something like that in there. To be issued by, and then you name the home warranty company. In this case, it'd be Fidelity Home Warranty. At a cost not to exceed $535, which I know is the cost of the extended coverage. To be paid for, and this is completely negotiable, and it depends on your exact situation. If you're in a buyer's market, you might want to have the seller pay for it. If you're in a seller's market, you might want to have the buyer pay for that, or at least split it evenly. Any of those are acceptable answers. In this case, I'm going to have the seller pay for it. Please don't decline purchase of a home warranty. Save yourself some troubles. Line 344, even though there are no additional terms in this particular case, I'm going to go ahead and select none. And the reason being is that I don't want anybody to go in after the fact and write something in there and me not catch it as an agent or as a broker. That has happened in the past, not to say that it would, or somebody had bad intentions, but then that contract does become voidable. And then line 437, let's give a time for acceptance. Today's the 23rd, again, it's Saturday at like 10 o'clock or 10:30 at night. Let's give them until Sunday, and we'll call it 9 p.m. One very, very critical notation on this contract. I need you to notate, this is listed in Mountain Standard Time. Today is March 23rd. We are not on Mountain Standard Time. We are on Pacific Time. So 9 p.m. Mountain Standard Time is 8 p.m. Pacific Time. If you were to accept a contract in between, say, 8 and 9 o'clock Pacific Time, that contract would not be valid. You wouldn't have a contract. So it's very, very critical to notate, depending on the time of year, what time it is currently. Big, big pet peeve as a broker is not having full contact information for each agent. I'm very, very critical of this. We do need, and especially the title company needs, your license number, the name of the firm that you represent, and the firm address, and also the firm's state license number. Those things are very, very easily found in the MLS, and I'll show you exactly where now. So I'm going to go ahead and put my name in here as the buyer's agent, my MLS code, which is KO142, my broker number, which is BR586913000, and I'll shorten this up for you here in just 2 seconds. All right, one last little quick note. Please do an agency confirmation and mark that the seller is being represented by this guy here, Jason. If you're doing dual representation, you can do that. In my firm, both buyer and seller would be appropriate in both these spots here, and that would signal to the escrow company that you're representing both the buyer and seller. And that is it, literally. So you guys can knock these things out in probably about 8 to 10 minutes when you're good at it, maybe even less for some of you guys that are good with the keyboard. If you guys have any questions, obviously I'm up late. Call, text, email, whatever you got to do, hit me up on the DM on Instagram. I'm always, always happy to help, even if you're not a member or an agent of the firm. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. And we'll catch you on the next one. Take care.